Welcome back to my channel. My name's Carter. I love talking about movies, horror movies, comic books, and superheroes. And tonight I will be touching on the subject of horror movies. I don't want to waste any time. I just got out of seeing The Strangers Chapter 1. The Strangers Chapter 1 is directed by Renny Harlin, stars Madelaine Petsch and Froy Gutierrez as a couple who go to Oregon on a vacation road trip, and their car breaks down and they have to stay in this little town overnight, and the strangers come. The strangers, of course, are those three iconic masked villains from the 2007 movie The Strangers. The Strangers Chapter 1 is not a prequel. It is a complete remake, so just keep that in mind when you go to see the film. Have you guys seen Strangers Chapter 1? If so, what did you think about it? Did you love it? Did you not love it? Tell me your thoughts on the original Strangers movie and then the Prey at Night sequel. Rounding out the crew, it's written by Alan R. Cohen and Alan Freedland, and the cinematography is done by Jose David Montero. With all that being said, let's jump right into the positives, and my biggest positive is going to be Jose's cinematography. He is an absolute master in this film. Him and Renny Harlin worked together to just make this a very eerie looking film. I think a lot of the lighting and the shot choices, the shot selection, work out really well to create this kind of eerie manner that make you feel like you're watching someone in a very... I just discovered I've been misusing the word voyeuristic, so I use it like all the time, like, oh, I'm watching him, like, voyeuristically, meaning I get sexual pleasure. I don't, unfortunately, so I probably should never say that in my classes again. Anyways, the cinematography is absolutely just banging. It is so well done. The sequences later on take place outside of the cabin in the woods with some fog especially, that I thought just looked so good. Seriously, those were the best parts of the film. Even though the story and characters maybe were a little lacking, which I'll get into later on, that sequence stands out in my mind as like the epitome of like slasher, just villainy. The shots were framed, the shots were framed in such a great way. The lighting was just pitch perfect, and the fog rolling in just made it so eerie. If you switched out Scarecrow or the masked man, the man in the mask, I forget what his name is, you switched him out for like Jason Voorhees or Michael Myers, it would probably be like instantly iconic. That's how good those shots were. And I think that they do a great job of also setting the tone for the film and keeping the tension when maybe the writing wasn't as strong as it could have been. I think that, well, the idea, the core concept of The Strangers is a really good and interesting one. This remake just fundamentally misunderstands that. However, The Strangers themselves are still brutal. They're still like sadistic, just kind of watching these people, messing with them, and it builds the tension over the course of the film. And I think Renny Harlin does a great job of just kind of keeping all the moving pieces together and maintaining good use of that cinematography to keep the tension, and also just making the sequences feel very kinetic, very lively. The sound design as well cannot go unstated. The sound design was absolutely incredible. Just like the sound of twigs snapping in the woods, or just anything small like that had such an effect on the film to where sounds were deafening, and that was nice, but also made the jump scares like so startling to where I was like, because the sound was just like molesting my ears. I don't know if I can say that. However, this movie definitely fell short of my expectations, and so going into the mixed, the biggest thing here is just that the writing really fell short. I mean, obviously, The Strangers idea of itself, I'm a fan of the original film. I don't think it's like incredible masterpiece by any means. I think it still suffers from the characters are just not interesting in any Strangers film, if I'm being honest. I don't really care for the characters. The villains are interesting. They look cool, which is what you want a slasher villain to have, but they're not very like memorable apart from like, yeah, they come because you're home. They visit and they don't have any motive other than like, oh, you're home. They're looking for someone to kill, and that's it. And so, well, that idea, when it kicks in the like last two acts, last half of the film, is very interesting, very engaging, and I still like it. The writing for the characters just isn't very good. The characters here aren't very likable, especially for Gutierrez in the first like act of the film. He's just written as such a dick. Like, he's so negative and just so mad to be in this beautiful Oregon town. And yeah, people are creepy, people are weird, but like even before that, he's like, oh, we're in the middle of nowhere, this sucks. Madelaine Petsch does a great job here. She was actually very convincing. She was really good in this, like far and away. That's not even a mixed positive. She was good in this. I think the dialogue definitely wasn't that great, and I'm just going to jump right into the negatives. So as good as this movie looks, as good as this movie sounds on a technical level, my biggest issue with it is that it just kind of like fundamentally takes the interest of the strangers out. The interest of the strangers is they come because you're home, right? Like I mentioned before, they come because you're there, you don't know who they are, and this film doesn't reveal who they are. The film frames it in a way to where maybe the strangers premeditated this, and like they frequent a certain place. And I didn't really like that. Like in the original Strangers movie, they just kind of hang around. They just go on like a rampage for fun. And they don't really frequent one spot to my memory. And so to where I liked it a lot in the original film, I think it didn't really work out here. And that kind of bugged me. Like I'm not a big fan of the original film. I'm not like a huge worshiper of it. But that was like, okay, well the biggest thing about The Strangers is that. And now you're kind of taking that away. And now they're just like three people in masks. Like kind of like The Purge, just walking around. And another thing is that it's also a part one. It's very much a part one. It just has some stuff in the first act that feels like a really weird, needless setup. Like there's certain actors that pop up that are recognizable, maybe to me because I watched movies with them in it just like last week and then the week before that, which I thought was kind of weird. Okay, my camera just died. Alright, the rest of the video, no footage. I do apologize about that. I just thought that was weird. It felt like it was maybe setting up other things that will be paid off down the line. And this being a trilogy is just navigated in such a weird manner. You know it's a trilogy, and so it kind of takes away a lot of the, like it's chapter one, right? It takes away a lot of the tension, a lot of the suspense from the film. So whether it certainly still had tense sequences, you never really feel like the characters are in any real danger, unfortunately. And my biggest issue with the film, which I will get into right now, it is spoilers, so if you don't want to be spoiled at all, skip ahead about a minute to where I get into my overall thoughts. But my biggest issue, spoilers, 3, 2, 1. My biggest issue here is that it's just a retread of the first film. Pretty much everything happens exactly the same, except the couple isn't engaged and then break up like on their before their wedding or something. I can't remember the exact details. It's pretty much the same movie. You know, they're in a house, kind of isolated, right? And it even goes to the same beats. I'm not going to spoil everything, but there's no real surprises in this film. It's just pretty much The Strangers from 2007, but in a different location. And that's it. And that was pretty disappointing to me, if I'm being honest. I think the worst thing you can do with a horror remake or a revamp of something is just make it the exact same. And unfortunately, that's what this movie did. So that really bothered me. All right, so spoilers are over. It's all done. So I was pretty disappointed walking out of this movie. I don't see anyone like despising this movie unless you're a real Strangers diehard, but I don't see anyone loving this movie either. So for my score of The Strangers, I'm going to go ahead and give it a 4 out of 10, which is going to give it the Cowabummer Dude title. Well guys, thank you so much again for 500 subscribers. I'm so excited. I love doing this. It's really, really fun. I just love being able to talk about movies and fun stuff. As always, my name is Carter. Have a great rest of your day.